Thank you so much for making time, Phil. Really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Great. So tell us maybe a little bit more about how you became, a philanthropy advisor and your career journey, and what really sparked your passion for the space. Because you've been very generous with your time and your expertise, your experience, your wisdom, reaching out to others emerging in the field as advisors, multifamily offices. And so I really want to hear about your story and how you've come to be in this position.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that I'm really none of the things that you might think of. I'm really an educator. I've never, I've won fundraising awards. I've never raised a dime. I've, been on boards of professional advisory groups. I've never advised a client. I've always been an educator. That's my natural bent. And
Mm.
originally I was teaching the humanities, and then I taught finance. And now I see myself kind of teaching at the intersection of humane considerations and wealth, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I think probably the only thing I'm an expert in or would claim competence in is teaching.
It's teaching, yeah. And what are you teaching the generations that are emerging now? We're all talking about the next, the great wealth transfer and the next generation. What is your sort of clarion call, and what is your ethos right now that you're passing on to the next generation that you've been advising?
I think what I'm probably known for, people seem to take away from whatever I teach is really the emphasis on listening as opposed to being an expert. I mean, traditionally, when you get your credentials and so forth, you aspire to be the person with the answers.
Right. Right.
And I think it's much. I really do think of going back to philosophy and literature and all that, that it's far more important to have halfway decent questions
Mm.
and then to listen. But also, when you work on that a little while, then what are you listening for? And how do you recognize what you're hearing? And that's a whole other level of analysis. That's in literary theory, they call that hermeneutics. But I mean, essentially, it's anyway, it's a very, very deep topic of how do you listen to people, particularly people whose background is different than yourself, and what are you likely to hear when that's the case, and are you self-aware enough to kind of adjust to 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 the listening, the interpreting. Really, it's dialogue. I mean, listening is a part of a larger process of dialogue, which is
Mm.
dialogue is sharing of meaning, and that's an endless challenge. And philanthropy, I think, is a staging area for that. It's a like a quintessential staging area
Yeah.
for listening and dialogue, as well as tools and techniques and expertise. But I think there's a very big need for that listening to the other and listening to what's speaking through the other. I mean, I was just thinking this morning and before our call about you know, listening to ancestors who are no longer here and how that's almost the definition of the arts. I mean, the arts are all daughters of memory, and
Hmm.
so I mean, that, that's the level I think conversation that I'm kind of known for. And it's very, very difficult to find a business model for it or a job doing it. That's the core of it. It's essentially human activity or humane activity, and
Yeah.
I think that's why you know most people who are in those roles have been mendicants, right?
Right.
It's not a prestigious consulting role. It's a person at the crossroads who has a question that's easily ignored. So
Mm.
anyway, that's kind of where I have been, and in the process, you do pick up expertise in certain learned bodies of knowledge. You can convey those, but I think in general that's the it's the shell and not the living thing.
Right, right, right. And we talked a bit earlier about, the bubble of some of the fields that we sort of hear about, impact investing, philanthropy, aid. We see that aid and philanthropy look very much alike. Impact investing and traditional investing look very much alike. So I mean, what are
They are.
your thoughts on what it is we are all doing here, and how can we be more honest and really listen to the fact that, we have major crises, and each of these fields have different roles to play. So this is really about impacts and philanthropy and how it could be more. hear the word again, catalytic, but how do we really use that kind of capital and advise people with wealth who are stewarding wealth to really think about the values and the opportunity, the immense opportunity to really tackle social issues and things like, just people's lives and livelihoods. What are your thoughts?
Well, I do think that these fields, all whether it's foreign aid, philanthropy, business models, when you look at the diagrams, they all look the same. Assess needs, put strategies, measure results, reassess. It's all the same
Mm.
kind of mechanical process. And as we're talking about, philanthropy in Africa, I think one of the most important things is really what are other ways of knowing, what are other ways of being, and what can the philanthropist learn from the person they're in service to or in service with, to not simply endlessly verify or validate the model of means and ends and results and that mechanical model, and begin to ask questions about what does our shared life look like together, and how is it sustainable, and who are we becoming in the process.
Right, and who will we become in the process is the question, right? I think we speak to quite a few funders and philanthropists, and yes, there's wealth advisory, right? The traditional sense of wealth and investing, and nickels and dimes and where to put your money. But the values piece is actually really important, and even the data points, the fact that for those who are stewarding wealth, especially those coming up, again, we talk about the next generation. The values piece is actually really important. And so maybe tell us a bit more about the work that you're doing to take people through the listening and the really drilling down. And we talked about the experience that we are offering at Scale Up Africa to allow a small select group to have the space and time removed from the bubble to really explore some of the more global
Yeah,
development goals and impact goals. I mean, we've had some interns from Indiana University who are our partners, and they're business students, undergraduates who actually chose Scale Up Africa as a consulting case to work on because they just felt the pull towards an impactful conversation as opposed to a pure commercial conversation. So I do see more and more evidence at different touch points to indicate that there is a lot of interest and a deep need for that kind of advice and that kind of space and time and community to really navigate how do we steward wealth in a way that can actually make the impact. So tell us a bit more about your thoughts there.
well, I mean, you're touching on so many different things. I mean, the wealth world over my you know career has gone from nobody talking about values to everybody talking about values and making no difference. I mean, it's like it has become a mantra. It's become a mechanical process. And
Mm,
I could go to my shelf and I could pull off worksheets and values cards and all the rest of it, which is
mm,
essentially corporate branding exercises. I mean, they're essentially creating a mission statement as you would with a business. And then allegedly that drives everything. But it's really more like in my opinion, the ornament on the hood of a car. The car's
right.
going to go where it's going to go, and the hood ornament goes with it, or the mermaid or the beautiful woman on the prow of a ship. I mean, the ship is steered by the winds, not by the not by the figurine at the front. But
Right.
anyway, that's just a philosopher's view of it. I find it very somewhat insulting. But it is predominant. Okay, that's the predominant. What are your values? How do we pass them on to the next generation? That is the conversation. I think it's mechanical and sterile. I think a much more vital way to do that is to expose people to, as you're doing, to the world outside their own bubble, and see how they respond to that, and how they re-examine themselves, how they begin to be changed by experiences that they had never anticipated or expected. I think, that's more like values formation, or spiritual formation. I think is what they would call in the faith tradition. It's how you become yourself and how you outgrow,
Mm,
the shell in which you had been enculturated. I think that could be a very,
mhm.
very valuable thing. A sense of community that extends beyond just the immediate zip code and in wealth rating in the private school and all that. I think that's very, very dangerous it's very dangerous for society, but I think it's also very dangerous for the people in that world. And I
Yeah.
think what they're getting from within that world is a surrogate for what we're describing. It's a buffered, neutralized version, but it still keeps them. You know the story of Buddha, right? And the how Buddha became Buddha. He was raised in the family office palace, and everybody was set up to make sure he never escaped.
Yeah. Yeah.
slipped out one night and he experienced suffering. He became the Buddha by experiencing suffering. I think
Hmm.
that's a very, very profound and important point. You're not going to learn who you are meant to be from within a family office world talking to paid consultants who are essentially courtiers. I mean, essentially they are hired
Exactly.
by your father. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, it's just it's the world of courtiers. It's the world of kings and queens and
Hmm.
courtiers. And I think at some point the rising generation has to escape from that and find themselves in military service. Could be an example. Peace Corps could be an example of what you're offering.
Yeah.
If it's unbounded enough, so it's not simply philanthropic travel, you know what I'm saying, where you're
Yeah.
just sense gliding through and seeing it from a bus, but actually getting involved. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that could be extremely healing. I think it'd be extremely important, extremely healing.
Yeah, I mean, that's something where we're trying to curate and create. And so I really look forward to seeking your advice as well on maybe tweaking some of the elements of that to deliver that. I think we sense that there's a real need for that kind of space and that kind of immersion. And so we hope to be able to deliver on that and look forward to sharing what we learn along the way as well. Yeah. Phil, thank you so much for making time. I really appreciate your words and your work especially. And we look forward to keeping in touch and exchanging value. Thank you so much for joining.
You enjoyed it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.